Welcome back to the Integrative Health Podcast with Dr. Jen. So this will be a great conversation today. I'm so excited to have Robin Switzer here. She's an entrepreneur, deeply committed to guiding people on their journey to unlock the secrets to optimal health. She's the curator of Hack Your Health, formerly known as KetoCon. It's an annual health and wellness extravaganza that's taken the wellness community by storm. Robin's journey, which we'll get into today, is a story of resilience, one that many of us can relate to. For many years, she struggled with food addiction, insulin resistance, and hormone dysregulation, ultimately leading her to the incredible potential of a low, zero-carb eating and the ketogenic diet. So, Robin, thank you so much for being here this afternoon. I know this is a crazy time for you right now. So
well,
tell
thank
us
you for having me.
Yes, of course. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're an entrepreneur and a mother. Tell us a little bit
And a
about
grandmother.
You're a grandmother now?
Yes, I have a
That's
3-year-old
fabulous.
granddaughter. I'm 61 years old. I have a very, very full life, but it was a challenge, the process to get here for sure. Like what you mentioned, when I was in my 20s and actually my late teens through my 40s, I was always obsessed with nutrition, health, and wellness, and I was always following the latest trend. I really didn't know how to get well, and I didn't understand that all of the things that I was experiencing were related to poor metabolic health and insulin resistance. And it wasn't until I was in my mid 40s that I discovered that, hey, I mean, this Atkins craze that's going on sounds absurd, but I'm going to try it anyway. And it actually is working. So I didn't do Atkins to the extreme that a lot of people did in those days. But when I started cutting out carbohydrates and processed foods, I immediately started feeling better. And my journey was one that I would feel better and think I was cured and go back to my old ways. So it took me a while to figure out that, hey, has to be a lifestyle. And eventually I discovered the ketogenic diet, which seemed to help me a little bit more because the ketogenic diet by definition is lower carbohydrate, higher fat, and moderate protein. So when I was doing Atkins in the early days, I was eating a lot of protein, more than what my system could utilize to come back to homeostasis. So once I started following the ketogenic diet, and that lower protein and higher fat content initially helped me, it helped curb cravings for me. It helped me get over the sugar addiction. It helped me get over the food obsession. And once I cleared that, once I had that behind me, then I could kind of tweak the protocol to my needs. And by that time, if you want to hear the down and dirty, I was in a Facebook group under the KetoVangelist branding. KetoVangelist was an organization that had multiple business lines, 5 different podcasts, all surrounding or all about the ketogenic diet and educating, sharing that education. And there was one day in that group, there was a post about the admin was looking for a project manager, and it had to do with keto. And I was like, this is interesting. What the heck? I'm going to talk to him. Now, I had spent the past 20 plus years as a corporate banker, traveling around the country, training people and selling and managing teams. And I did not think that I had the skill set to translate into doing something with a startup. But I had the call with the gentleman. His name was Brian Williamson. And about 30 days later, throwing complete caution to the wind, and I would never advise anybody else to do what I did, I jumped ship at Bank of America. And I started working for Brian with no promise of compensation, unless we were profitable, of course. And so about 3 months in, we started building all these different business lines. And then we decided to do a live event, which was KetoCon. And this was in 2000. We started planning in 2016. We did the first event in 2017. I had never orchestrated, curated, planned an event outside of like family dinners. So or, like holiday stuff. But I had experience as a speaker at these large financial and treasury management events, and as a vendor or exhibitor when Bank of America had these, giant presence at these large events. So I knew what the vendors and exhibitors expected, and I knew what the speakers expected. So that's how I backed into building our first event. So we did KetoCon 2017, 2018, and 2019. And each year we doubled in size. And then 2020 happened, and we had to cancel. So with the intention of doing the event again as soon as we could, which no one knew what that meant. But about 30 days after, Brian contacted me and he said, we're going to have to close the doors. All the money that's come in to pay for the event has gone out, and now we can't do the event. The other business lines, like everybody else's business that was virtual and online, everything came to a screeching halt. Brian had 2 kids to put through college. I had already done that. So I said, I'm just not ready to give up here. I feel like there's so much more work to do. So we came to an agreement, and I acquired everything from him and started rebranding with the intention of doing KetoCon again in the future. Cashed out a fraction, I'm not going to tell you how much, of my 401k to invest in building it. And I started moving forward. And we did KetoCon online in 2020, which was really difficult. I had to learn how to use Zoom in 2 weeks, and then I had to interview like 70 speakers so that we could make it all available to our attendees. So not the proudest moment in my career, but I got through it. We sent care packages to all of the attendees who had purchased tickets that had opted in for it. And then we just started planning for 2021, which we could not do. It was not safe, or the requirements to do an event, a public live event like that, were too stringent, and we just wouldn't have been able to pull it off. So we set our eyes on 2022, which we did. And in 2022, we had about 2,000 people there, as many of the vendors who could make it. Some of them were still dealing with the after effects of COVID. And it made me realize that how important this is. So when you bring people that are part of this community, feel very connected to each other and to the event, because when they're there, the presence of all of these people at the same time, it has an energy that kind of takes on a life of its own, and everybody gets lifted. Yeah. So 2022 was awesome. And then, I started seeing that people's interests were changing. And I also started seeing that people who didn't understand what keto meant felt that this wasn't the right place for them. And I wanted to expand our reach so that I could help more people. So we made the decision to change our tagline of the event. So the event was KetoCon, the science and stories of keto, and we changed it to KetoCon, hack your health, so that we would have a year to transition. And so 2024, we are Hack Your Health by KetoCon. So that's hopefully the shortest version I can give you of how we got to where we are today. The event is in very many ways similar to how we launched, and then in every other way totally different. So this event used to be about 90% of the vendors and exhibitors and so forth were all food product manufacturers. I have a banned ingredient list. So over the years, the fewer and fewer companies were able to qualify to even be part of the event. And that's a whole nother side conversation that we can have related to keto food products. That's a whole nother thing. But now what I'm seeing is an interest from companies outside of the food space. And I mean, it has to be that way, obviously, because we're only proposing whole foods.
Right.
And the value and the value of whole foods. So now if you look on our website, you'll see there's such a variety of companies that want to engage with the health conscious community now. And it's pretty interesting because there are people like you and I who have found a need for something, built it themselves, and started building a company around it. So you're meeting the owners of these companies and the founders and the developers, which is fascinating to me at the event, they're collaborating with each other. They're collaborating with the attendees. It's really, like I said, taken on a life of its own. That was
Yeah,
probably a lot
that's
more than
amazing.
what you asked, but
Well, I think it's important to realize, first of all, you're a mother, a grandmother, and you're an entrepreneur. You had this corporate job and you left it because you knew something worked for you, and you knew it worked for you and other people with the
Mhm.
forums, and you just want to get the word out. And I feel you with that. I never wanted to be a business owner.
Yeah.
And here I am having a brick and mortar so I could reach people in the community to elevate health and get people feeling better when they've been to, 20 doctors and all the things, tried all the things. So I understand your passion. And really, though, the in-person events are so hard to do. They're hard to get people to. I mean,
Mhm.
I've hosted a handful and they're not that good of outcomes. It's hard to get people to commit to go somewhere. And
Sure.
I agree though. I finally the last year, my kids are old enough where I can go and network and leave them for a few days. I try to take them with me if I can.
Mhm.
And being with the like-minded people is so nice. I mean, I almost feel too comfortable. There's so much joy. I'm just like, huh, this is what I needed to refuel myself to go back into the communities and the people I'm trying to reach, which are those that are
Right.
not like-minded to me, those that fight back, those that are pushing, those that think that they can't get healthy. So it's very uplifting. I think it's amazing that you do this. And I'm super excited for this year. Like I said, this is a year I'm just like, I'm doing stuff. Things aren't going to fall apart if I leave. As a mother, sometimes you feel like that.
Oh yeah.
So it's good. And also your story growing up and like even into your 40s, I feel like most women, that's their story. I remember when I was having my Hashimoto's, my thyroid kind of story, when they diagnosed me with hypothyroidism, but they didn't know I had Hashimoto's until I was in medical school. But I was in high school and I started gaining weight. I was always very thin, and that really affected me and affected my relationship with food for decades after.
Yeah.
And I agree, like a lower carb, lower processed food lifestyle, it really changes your relationship with food when you start seeing food as fuel, not like just, okay,
Entertainment.
I'm eating just because it tastes good. And, I just had an argument with my husband about this. Not an argument. I was just like, what did I make? Salmon cakes, like low carb salmon cakes for dinner. And he's like, oh, yum. And I'm like, Chip, you need to eat to live, not live to eat. I'm like, this is good for you. I'm like, you eat out at work dinners like 2 to 3 times a week. Like you need to fuel your body. And I think that's what you try to get across is everyone is so sick.
Yeah.
It's our food that we're eating. And
Yeah.
that's why you continued this, right? You push through because you want to help others ultimately.
Yeah. I mean, so like I said earlier, I mean, I'm in my 60s now. I've done the corporate gig. I've been an entrepreneur since 2016. And by accident, really, I've found something that I'm good at. And I'm good at it in a way that makes me feel fulfilled because I know I'm helping people.
Mhm.
And I did not feel that way as a corporate banker. And let me
Mhm.
tell you, I made a lot more money as a corporate banker. But what I do now makes me feel that if I can get 3,000 people to this event, I know that every one of them is going to impact one other person.
Mhm.
So that means even if they only impact one other person, I'm helping 6,000 people a year.
Mhm.
So if I can get 6,000 people there, then I can impact 12,000 people a year. And this is the kind of thing that as it grows, we have a bigger and bigger impact. And it kind of feeds on itself. It snowballs. And that's what I'm working on, is getting as much information as I can to as many people as I can. And that becomes a complicated process because there's so much misinformation out there. And
Yes.
if people are relying on Instagram to get their nutritional advice, then they're getting hit by 30 different opinions
Mm-hmm.
by influencers. So I would like to know, when this is all said and done, that there are at least a handful of women in their 20s and 30s that I helped them avoid going through what I went through.
Right. Yeah. And
And
that's,
if I do that, I'll consider this a success.
yes, absolutely. And men too. I mean,
Of course.
the men out there are struggling. I mean, low testosterone levels, they're getting those bellies, they're not
Yeah.
having good muscle mass. It's very discouraging. And, for women, the 20s to 40s, that's most of my patient load. And they're coming to me with, menses that are regular, infertility, Hashimoto's, of course, is just, oh
Yeah.
gosh, younger and younger. I just saw a 6-year-old with Hashimoto's. So
God.
this is the food. The problem too that I see is that there's so much environmental toxins that if we're not putting in clean food, then our bodies are going to be just so toxic, the toxic load. And then our liver can't process our hormones properly.
Right.
And I love that you're expanding into the whole biohacking kind of, for Hack Your Health, everything, because it does go hand in hand.
Right.
And you need those other things too. You need to know how to sleep well, how to do breath work. Even, cold plunging kind of changed me, changed me for the better over the past year when I started doing it regularly. So these are things too that a lot of these, they could get really expensive, but they're also things that are not that expensive and have been
Yeah,
big impact.
exactly. Yeah. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I really think that there's a misconception that biohacking requires a $15,000 cold plunge
Right.
or, a $30,000 sauna in your backyard, and it's only available to the most elite. That's not the case.
No.
So I would say that, I mean, what's the estimate? Like 90% of the American public is metabolically unhealthy.
Right. Yeah.
Was that it?
Mhm.
So all those biohacking things are awesome, but if you don't dial in your metabolic health,
Mhm.
if you're not getting rid of processed food, if you're not moving and sleeping, then cold plunge isn't going to do you any good. And neither is a sauna. It might help, but it's not going to have the impact that the basics will have. And
Right.
so if there is an underlying theme to this event, it's about metabolic health. And
Mhm.
my goal is that the speakers are all addressing topics that improve metabolic health.
Mhm.
Um, and from the biohacking perspective, what you'll see at this event is that there's people at the very beginning of their health journey, and there's people that have been coming to this event since 2017. They've turned those issues around. Like me, they're metabolically healthy again.
Mhm.
And they want to learn more tricks and tools. They want to understand mental health. They want to understand how to improve their sleep. They want to experiment jumping in a cold plunge.
Mhm.
Um, they want to understand what body movement exercises really do for you if they're just coming into working out, or if they're already working out, they're tight and, uncomfortable, that, body weight classes and that kind of stuff really do help.
Mhm.
Breath work really does help. But until you're able to experience it firsthand, it all kind of seems like smoke and mirrors. So
Yeah.
yeah, the biohacking piece I think is really important, but I wish we had a different word for it.
Yeah. I
You
agree.
know,
People start to think, oh, biohacking, you need to be a millionaire or something to do that. But, for me, biohacking is waking up and reading my Bible instead of turning on my phone to Instagram or
right.
Facebook, right? So that's biohacking. That's free. And it's just habits. I actually did a 24-hour social media fast Sunday.
Good
I'm
for
doing
you.
it every Sunday in January. I'll probably do it every Sunday forever. I felt so good. And
Mm-hmm.
my Instagram messages for my business, for my personal account, they can wait 24 hours. I put it up
Right.
there. Everyone knew I wasn't going to get back to them right away. So, but speaking of fasting, fasting is, a biohacking tool that is free.
Mhm.
And, everyone is so scared of it. I have to coach my patients a lot, and teach them how to ease into longer fasts, especially if we're trying to break weight loss plateaus.
Right.
Um, and they really, we struggle with this just not eating because it is emotional too. And I've been doing a lot longer fasts this past year because my breastfeeding journey is coming to an end. And well, hopefully that's another story. It's taken a while because it's my last, but it's been very nice. I did a 3-day sardine fast. That was actually, I felt really good on that. Have you ever played around with that or other
I
fasts?
haven't, but not intentionally anyway.
Yeah.
And I know Annette Bosworth has been a big proponent of sardine
Yes.
fasts. Um, Honestly, I hate sardines. So,
You,
but I have done like, I have done other fatty fish types of fasts
oh,
without by
perfect.
definition, but not like planning to fast.
Mhm.
Yeah, fasting to me it's a tool that it's I think it's really a critical component of improving metabolic health. I really do.
Yes. Yes.
And I do hope that more people really dive into the details and the science behind this to understand it better and the
Mhm.
value. It made all the difference in the world for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so mental too. I think that's the problem
Yeah.
with fasting is everyone gets caught up in the mental aspect. But you know what I love when I'm fasting is when I'm out and about in public and someone asks me like, "Oh, you don't want that," or would you like breakfast? And I'm like, "No, I'm fasting." And it just like a light kind of clicks. They're like, "Oh, it's kind of cool." But it backfired on me once. So we're like telling my husband wanted my one son to have some eggs for breakfast. And he's like, no, I'm fasting like mom does. But also, sometimes there are people and kids included that don't want breakfast. And
Mhm.
I'm like, well, maybe their body wants that extra gut healing time. They're very intuitive. Kids listen to their
Yes.
body before they're told to shut off listening to their body. And it's kind of fun. So I think like you were saying, like just this event and what you do and what you pour into it, it's influencing other people to even look into things and
Mhm.
follow people that actually are talking about metabolic health. And that's just what I hope, when I pull out like a keto brick when I'm like on the airplane, or I pulled one out at the baseball field and someone's like, that looks good. Is that chocolate? And I'm like, well, kind of want to bite. Like I share it with people and I'm like, yeah, it's just a brick of fat. So, I always have it in my bag, so I just can gnaw on it if I need to. But you know how it is to be busy. And I think as a mother and someone that's busy, and I know you were busy traveling and, work when you were in the work field, that it's not an excuse to make bad decisions for our body. And that's what I hear again and again. Like I heard it from my patients, and I know I ate a little bit too much sugar over the holidays, but at what point do we just double down on our health and reducing, the risk of especially women breast cancer and, dementia,
Right.
type 2 diabetes. So it's so hard because I try to give an 80-20 approach to my life and my patients, because otherwise sometimes they just give up, right? Or it becomes stressful on the family. How do you manage that when you're teaching others or in your own life? Because we want people to embrace the lifestyle and not quit.
Right. I have a lot of thoughts about this. So, um, for me personally, I view those behaviors as old habits.
Mhm.
And I know that it takes time to change a habit. Not only, the physical action, but the emotional and mental process of a habit. It takes time to change those. I'm at the point now where I look at those options and I'm choosing feeling good over not feeling good. So when you eliminate all those foods from your diet and you reintroduce them, you definitely feel the impact. So at least I do. I'm super sensitive to carbohydrates. So if I take in too much carbohydrate, I'm puffy, foggy, and lethargic. So I make the choice to not feel that way. I don't have time to feel bad either. And the other thing is, when you start to age and you want to age well, those choices are impactful. So you can get away with something in your 40s and not be super sick. Although I think that there's much more available to younger generations than there was when I was 40. It's a lot more choices and a lot more temptations. When you're aging, those choices are immediately impactful to your life. I have a 3-year-old granddaughter. I'm 61. I want to be there when she gets married, and I don't want to be in a wheelchair.
Right.
I don't want to have cancer. I don't want to have dementia. So I know that the choices I'm making now are going to impact that. And there's all this talk about longevity and living longer. I want to live longer, but healthy. If I'm going to be ill, I don't want people to have to take care of me or for me to be dependent on others. I want to be able to take care of myself. So that's how I address it for myself personally. How I talk to other people about it is to remind them that, if you have I have a lot of experience meditating. And one of the things that happens when you first start meditating, especially if you're not doing like a guided meditation, if you're just closing your eyes and breathing, your thoughts just run away. And one of the things that I learned early in the process is when you catch yourself and you realize you're off in Never Never Land, you don't even know how long you've been meditating, you just begin again. I've used that in my process of transitioning to my current lifestyle. So I fell off the wagon. Like you said, I ate a little bit too much sugar on whatever holiday, or it was Hanukkah and I ate matzo balls or whatever it was. I may feel pretty crappy after it, but rather than that turning into 3 months of a binge, which it would have when I was younger, I tell myself the same thing, begin again. And just go right back to no punishing, no fasting for 3 days, no calorie restriction, no whatever, my old habits would have been to punish myself for it. I just begin again.
Yeah.
And that's worked for me.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to look at it, because if you're punishing yourself, then it's just, it's not healthy. It's not a healthy lifestyle then. And that's what this is about, health. We've just drifted away from health as a society in general. And it's, I don't mind being the weird one, like no food dyes, and we're gluten-free as a family, because that cuts out tons of stuff if you're just gluten-free. And I can't have gluten. When I have gluten, I react. I probably have celiac. That's probably where my Hashimoto's came from, but I'm never going to eat it to get the test. So a lot of the times with patients, I tell them, like, just give up gluten for 6 weeks. It's going to cut out a lot of the processed crap, almost, look at paleo recipes, stuff like that. Like, let's ease out of it. And then I tell them, after 6 weeks, I want you to go out and have your pizza if you want to, if you're really missing it that much, and write down how you feel. And most of them are like, it's not worth it. I don't feel bad again. And that's the thing, when you're living in this toxic life. And I explain this like to my husband, like so much. I'm like, everyone is just so used to feeling like crap, especially living in the Midwest. I
Yeah.
mean, there are kids that are 19 years old and they should be healthy young males that are having like 4 monsters a day.
Oh my
And
God.
I said something to this one kid, and I'm like, those are just like really bad for you. You should have natural energy, like I do. I'm like, I have natural energy. And he's like, oh yeah, I know my heart's gonna explode, but I gotta drink them to have energy. And
Wow.
it just breaks my heart because I wish I could do an integrative consult with like every person I talk to and be like, what's your sleep? What are you eating? What trauma have you had? Just like going down through the thing. And this
Right.
is why, I give out as much free information as I can, but I don't know, they're probably not going to listen, but planting little, nuggets, little seeds of information, I hope, I pray it helps because
Yeah.
these this is just, we're the sickest country, we the most chronic diseases. And like you were saying, you want to be 90 playing on the floor with your grandchildren and get up without using your hands, right? That's a sign
Right.
of longevity. And that's what I tell my patients. I'm like, we're doing the work. We're peeling back all the layers. And my goal is to have you feel amazing, more amazing now than you did 30 years ago. And that
Hmm.
should be everyone's goal. We have so much at our fingertips. And
We do.
not all of it is expensive, but I mean, Robin, like why do you think everyone's so sick? I mean, I know it breaks your heart like it breaks mine that we are just a sick nation. And almost sometimes people are celebrating being sick. They're celebrating being obese. They're celebrating eating junk food, going to Starbucks and getting all these sugar-filled drinks. I mean, it's heartbreaking, right?
It is. Wow. Why? Well, there are a lot of companies out there with really deep pockets
Yeah.
that are allowed to do and say whatever they want. And they're making products that are addictive.
Yeah.
So it's a battle, especially for people who are uninformed.
Mm.
And they're the general public is being sold to every day from 100 different directions in one way or another. There's the radio, the internet, the billboards, the TV, Target, Starbucks.
Look at the
It's,
Stanley Cup craze.
oh my God, it's ridiculous. So, I
Yeah, my
mean,
daughter has one and my son.
I just, people have personal choice, but they have to understand that they have personal choice.
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of people are just making choices without giving thought to what they're doing
Mm.
or without understanding the long-term impact. And
Right.
I also think that it's really confusing for people who are trying to understand because they could go on YouTube one day and everything is anti-meat, plant-based diets, eat your grains. And then the very next day they'll see, someone who's promoting an all meat diet protocol for healing. So,
Right.
I mean, those are extremes. And
Mm.
the problem is that they've worked for people, both sides.
Yeah.
So though people have to understand that not only do they have to have not only do they have personal choice, but they have to take ownership for themselves. You can't put it on anybody else. You have to educate yourself and find out what works best for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're all different.
Right.
One diet, one protocol doesn't work for every patient. That's what I tell my
Right.
patients. I don't do like cookie cutter protocols with everyone. I tailor it for everyone in front of me because genetically we're all different. And
Right.
and epigenetics, oh my goodness, that we're
Mhm.
all even more different from there and where we live. Oh my goodness, the Midwest, glyphosate everywhere, which ruins
Yeah.
our gut health. Everyone's low in vitamin D. I mean, I'm recording in a sunroom because it's a great place to record because it's usually cloudy. So it's pretty wild, but but it's everywhere. It's not just the Midwest where we have, an obesity
No.
metabolic, problem, but it is interesting because when I go out to California for conferences, everyone is fitter, walking around, they're outside more. And that does correlate with metabolic flexibility, movement, and
Mhm.
getting that insulin sensitivity improved. So I
Right.
think I think just America's in a crisis. And I was really hoping with the pandemic that everyone would come out wanting to get healthier, metabolically healthier, because we saw who what the virus attacked and who it attacked, those that weren't metabolically flexible.
Right.
And I feel like no one is like scared about this. So that's what confuses me. It's like people aren't scared of dying really of these chronic diseases anymore because they think the hospital will just bandage them up, but they don't
Right.
realize their quality of life is garbage. It
Do you
just
think
doesn't
that
make
the
any
general
sense.
public really understands the gravity of who suffered as a result of COVID? Because I don't know that I don't think that people really that overall, I mean, people in the wellness space understand, but outside of that, I don't
And maybe
think
you're
that
not,
people
but yeah.
really
I
relate to those
Yeah, I
numbers.
think you're right, maybe. I mean, I think it's hard for the Midwest because most people aren't in a good metabolic space. Like it's normal for everyone to be on a diabetes, a blood pressure med, and all of that. So maybe just the people going to the hospital and the ones that didn't, well, it was just normal. For me, I think it's hard and different too for me to relate with people that aren't in the healthcare field because I'm still in the emergency room, and
Right.
everyone that is coming and suffering from heart attack, stroke, diverticulitis, all of these things, it's because of a chronic disease that could have been prevented 20 years ago if they were metabolically flexible. I mean, when
Mhm.
we come down and look at the line of, everything, type 2 diabetes, vascular strokes, heart attack, high blood pressure causing impotence, even losing digits in legs. I mean, it all comes down to metabolic flexibility. So all of those things could be prevented. All these things that I'm seeing in the emergency room that are emergencies,
Right.
most of the things I'm seeing, I'm not seeing, as much broken limbs and me having to suture someone and dislocations, not seeing those as much. Most of the things I'm seeing are results of nutrition. And
Right.
what's great, honestly, the emergency rooms I work at, I usually have time to sit down and talk to those patients. Sometimes I give them, my book. I talk to them about nutrition, about sleep. It's so nice to be able to do that. But at the same time, some of them aren't willing to listen, and then they'll go to their doctor and their doctor might say that's stupid advice, here's a
Yeah.
pill. I mean, it's so hard to see, but all you can do is just plant those seeds. But I do agree with you about when they go on social media and one day someone's saying, avoid lectins, eat all plant or whatever, and then it's all meat. It's those extremes that confuse people.
Right.
It's really difficult for the average person to figure this out, and they need good doctors, good health coaches to help them navigate it.
Yeah, I agree. When people ask me how they should approach this um, journey, if you will, to health, I tell them to try and keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and by keeping it simple, meaning cook your own food,
Yes.
avoid restaurants because you just don't know what you're getting when you go to a restaurant anymore. I mean, the quality that's coming out of restaurants today is just like, it's obscene how horrible it is.
Yeah.
So keep it simple by cooking at home, walk, drink water, read at night to relax, get a good night's sleep, get up early and walk again. And
Yeah.
just those few simple things, cut out sugar, just
Mm-hmm.
those few simple things, even, even like a 75% attempt is going to be a huge improvement over your current situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that small improvement feeds on itself, just like how the event keeps growing. It just kind of feeds on itself.
Mm-hmm.
Just a
Yeah.
little bit of success makes you realize that, hey, this is a possibility. I can do this.
Yeah.
And
One, I'm sorry, go ahead, Robin.
I was just going to say one other thing, that I think that mindset is really important in this particular journey, because you can look at you can look at your options and say, oh, I can't eat that, or I can eat this, or I get to eat this. I'm not eating that anymore, or all these are the things that feed me, that nourish me.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
not a punishment. It's not a diet. It's not a restriction. It's a way to heal yourself.
Yeah.
It can be as simple as that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's so true. You get to eat that. I get to eat this way. I've actually said those things before when when I was doing my sardine fast, the kids were like, "What?" Like, and I'm like, "Yum, like I'm doing this for my body. I'm, helping getting into therapeutic ketosis.
Yeah.
I'm purging my body of disease." What I would love to know your takes, Robin, on continuous glucose monitors,
I
because
love them.
yeah, it has changed my patients' lives. The fact that they see their bio individual data, amazing, amazing results. I just think it really. This one patient I have, he's like a farmer. He's older. When he saw me, it was because he was like COVID made him like not trust any regular doctor, and they found
Right.
me. Wonderful, wonderful guy. So his goal is to get off all his medications, and he was on about 5. His down to 1, like the lowest dose. They were diabetes and blood pressure medications, but he loved wearing his continuous glucose monitor. And it was like a snowball effect, because the little things I told him, and then he went in on his own, and he just kept reading. He was so hungry for change.
Right.
And I'll never forget when he was like, "Oh my goodness, fruit juices. I cannot drink those. My glucose just goes up right away." I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Remember, I'm glad you saw it," because me telling someone that, these fruit juices and fruit cleanses, if they're made of fruit juices, and not vegetables, they're going to skyrocket your glucose. If you want fruit, eat a fruit with the fiber, because it slows down that
Right.
absorption of the glucose a little bit. But seeing it on a continuous glucose monitor, and if those listening don't know what it is, I have some YouTubes on this, and seeing that big spike, which is bad. A big glucose spike means a big insulin spike. Then they can see that themselves. And next time there's fruit juice that's just sitting there out at a breakfast buffet, they're going to skip it, right? I mean, I can't even tell you the last time I had juice. It's probably been like decades for you,
It
right?
has. It has. Yes, it has. Yeah, I agree. The continuous glucose monitors are, I wish that they were not so expensive, because I think that people would
Right.
more easily, you know, participate to get the information. I don't know. I'm not familiar with how insurance covers these or not covers these. I would assume that you have to be diagnosed with diabetes in order to get it covered. I paid
So,
for them out of my pocket when I tried them.
yeah, how much did you
And I do
pay?
it for about 3 months a year, every year
Mhm.
now.
How much did you pay a month?
About $120. I bought them
Okay.
directly from the diabetes website.
Okay. Usually, so with insurance, you could get it at about 75, because most of us have metabolic syndrome, honestly, like
Right.
that 90%, right? So, also sometimes hypoglycemia,
Mhm.
codes can work on that, because, they're on that roller coaster. So usually with a prescription, insurance cost ends up being about 75 if they don't even cover it, right?
Mhm.
And then some get it covered with insurance, and it's about 30 to 40. So
Awesome.
yeah, ask your doctor. I mean, the worst that they can do is say no, but
Right.
they should be able to write it. It's prevention.
Mhm.
Most of us are pre-diabetic, honestly, which is pretty rough.
Very.
And I honestly, Robin, I think everyone should be like required by their insurance company to wear one of these 1 month a year, or get lower rates.
Mhm.
But it goes back to the multi-payer. We're not a single payer country.
Right.
So what in 5 years is is your insurance going to care? If it's not within that 5 years, and if it's over that, they don't care about prevention. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why these preventative things are really hard to get your insurance to cover. But it goes back to what I say about insurance in general. Insurance is for big time emergencies, big hospital stays, people breaking bones, that kind of stuff. It's not for health maintenance prevention. It's just,
Right.
it's just not set up like that.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
It is
So,
unfortunate.
so your continuous glucose monitor is probably just like really nice, right? Really,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you still wear it for 3 months out of the year?
Every year I pick 3 months that I'm going to do it, and just buy 3 of them and wear them. And what I eat has changed over the years too. My preferences change over the years, and with intermittent fasting, my preferences have changed quite a bit. So I really keep doing it because I think that it's just a good accountability check. I mean, it's very easy to get wrapped up in your schedule. It's very easy for me to work too much, keep longer hours than I should. And on the continuous glucose monitor, your ability to manage how you respond to food changes if you're, sleep deprived too.
Yeah, it's fun to
So
watch.
yeah, I just think it's a great tool, and it kind of validates for me each year as I go back and do it again, validates for me again that I'm doing the right thing for me.
Yeah. And it's fun to test out products too, probably, right? Yeah.
Sure.
They're like electrolyte drinks. It's interesting. There was one that had, instead of, natural flavors, which most have that are still high quality. This one just had like pureed strawberries, and it breaks it fast. Like I get a little bump in it. So I know I have to treat that electrolyte drink more as like a dessert, or more of like after a meal, as opposed to, because I'm actually digesting it, working at it, as opposed to having it just like during a fast or whatever. So that's a really fun thing to do for me, is test out individual foods too. And because a lot of the grain-free stuff, me being gluten-free, sometimes I will have a few grain-free if it's in my luteal phase and I'm a little bit higher carb. Then some of it, like cassava flour, does not sit well with me. And I wouldn't have known that except for the continuous glucose monitor. So it's really great. It's a really great tool.
I agree.
So to wrap things up, could you just give us an example of what you eat maybe in like a day or two? Just, I'm sure everyone is curious because you've been kicking butt at this and you look amazing and you're kind of the guru. So.
All right. Let me see. Yesterday I ate around 11 o'clock was my first meal. I had 3 scrambled eggs, a little bit of leftover steak from the night before, and some sliced cucumbers with the olive oil. And I love apple cider vinegar, so I use that as like a dressing. For dinner last night, I broiled some chicken breasts, and I chopped it up and made like a chicken salad with it, and put like onions and pickles and cucumbers in it, and put it over a bed of lettuce. That's what I had for dinner last night. I usually have 1 cup of black coffee, decaf, in the morning. And then I start on drinking water. Sometimes I add apple cider vinegar to my water, and a mineral supplement, a liquid mineral supplement. And then I haven't eaten lunch yet.
Right.
So I'll probably eat again around 4. I try not to eat after 4 o'clock because I try to be in bed by 9 and asleep by 10. That I would say maybe 75% of the time I'm actually able to do that. But especially right now in the last final 5 months leading up to the event, I could easily work until 11 o'clock at night. So I might eat dinner at 4 or 5, 6 o'clock, and then I don't go to sleep until 11. So that screws up the next day, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, I keep things really, really simple. Most of the things that are on my list of foods that I eat, red meat, ground beef or steaks, eggs, some cottage cheese once in a while, blueberries, strawberries, cucumbers, tomatoes, avocado, chicken, salmon,
Yeah.
onions. I mean, that's pretty much what makes up the bulk of my diet. I eat some leafy greens occasionally. My preference is like butter leaf lettuce, but I used to eat a ton of vegetables. I don't so much anymore. I did have asparagus last week. I also had a slice of an orange last week when my granddaughter was here.
Oh, yeah.
So, but the majority of my food, I mean, I'm pretty bored. When I first came into this lifestyle, I was the one making cauliflower pizza crusts and crackers made from almond flour and cheese and all these elaborate recipes. I do love to cook, but in my normal everyday life, I want to nourish myself and move on. I just don't want to spend all that time, recreating something.
Right.
And occasionally I'll still do it. Occasionally I'll still make some kind of, low carb cheese cracker if I'm going to someone's house and I want to bring something with me. But for the majority of the time, it's very, very simple for me.
Yeah. That's great. I love hearing what other people eat. And I always like watching what people eat on Instagram and getting ideas. I think that's the thing I struggle most with as a mother. We always have, a protein, obviously, and a veggie is what we try for. And oh gosh, sometimes it just gets so hard or the kids get so bored. And one thing I haven't made for a while is chicken marsala, which, I would just eat like the chicken and really not have it over anything. But I just haven't made it lately. I put it in this cool crock thing. It's like I forget what it's called now, but it's like a warm, it's non-electrical. You boil the food and then you put it in there. It's really cool. But I think that's the hardest thing I struggle with. I really love chicken crust pizza, like ground chicken. I don't know. It's like my new thing. Like I get so excited to eat it and it's so good. And my family is grossed out by it.
Really?
They get the cauliflower crust pizza from the pizza shop. It's like okay, clean. It's not like, if we made it at home, but it's not terrible. And then I have my chicken crust and I get so excited and they think I'm so weird. But it's really satisfying that protein and the fat, like it's just, but I think, anyone listening out there that's like, whoa, I can't do that. I think keeping it simple, like Robin was saying, is important. Like just have steak, or a lot of the times we just have like Costco, because I have so many kids. I have 4 kids and we just get Costco grass-fed burgers and that's easy. And my son who's 11 can light up the grill and make them himself. Like sometimes if I'm, running errands, I'm like, you start making burgers. So and then I throw some green beans in the Instapot. So it doesn't have to be elaborate and hard. And like, like when my husband cooks and there's like 50 bowls everywhere from prepping, well, he makes a really good Mongolian beef, but I mean, it's hard, and don't compare yourself to the people on Instagram making all these elaborate, perfect meals. It doesn't have to be that way to nourish your body. Not at all. So.
I have to say though, I have to acknowledge the fact that, I mean, I live alone. My kids are grown. So all I'm taking care of is myself. So it is much easier for me than it is for, someone much younger than me that has kids at home. I think back to the days when my boys were younger, and I don't know that I would say that I kept it simple all the time. I was always trying to find ways to, get them to eat other things. I do remember making them low carb pizzas with a like a low carb tortilla, which I don't remember the quality of them. I didn't know then what I know today. And I used scrambled eggs and put pizza sauce over it and cheese over it and made the crust, crispy, and they loved it. So
That's
I
cool.
decided to get creative.
Yeah.
And then of course there were many times where they didn't eat very well, but I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I also made a lot of like tuna salad and egg salad.
Mm.
Um, so although in those days it was Hellman's mayonnaise, which is full of seed oils. So,
Still
I did
is.
the best I
Yeah.
could. Yeah.
Yeah. My mom had a big jar at Christmas, and I was like, you guys know seed oils are bad. What they did so good. My dad was like off a seed oil, like he was like all in, like no seed oils, and then they're all back. Sometimes I just want to like go to their pantry and just throw it all away. But I mean, I would do that for free if someone wanted me to come to their house and throw away
Mhm.
everything bad in their house. Like I would have fun doing that. But
Yeah.
I don't, that's not always good. That could be traumatic.
Right.
So, Robin, thank you so much for the amazing discussion today. And tell everyone how to register for Hack Your Health 2024, because you totally can. You guys can get hotels, get flights
Mhm.
booked. Let's go. We'll all hang out.
Sure. Well, the website is hackyourhealth.com. There's a get tickets button and it shows you all the different options. You can, uh, the ticket prices go up as we get closer and closer to the event. There's a discount code that they can use, Dr. Jen, and save $50 on each of the tickets they purchase, regardless of the ticket type that they purchase. The event's in Austin, May 31st through June 2nd. And there's also under the attendees tab on our website, there's a link for discounted hotels. So we don't guarantee the hotels with the properties. We just offer the discounted rates. So once they run out, they run out. But there are some pretty good rates with local properties that are within walking distance of the Palmer Event Center. And I mean, I would encourage people to look at who the speakers are and look at who has signed up to exhibit to date. We're about halfway full. We expect probably 100 vendors there, and there are 63 speakers, multiple different panels. We're doing an entrepreneur business building workshop on Thursday, the day before the event, at the venue. There are going to be body weight movement classes. There'll be cold plunge experience, sauna experience, red light therapy. There'll be a bunch of different things for people to try. Body Spec will be there with, I think they're bringing 6 vans, and they're scheduling, doing DEXA scans for people every few minutes. And I think they did like 250, maybe 300 DEXA scans
Wow.
over the course of the weekend last year. They do it at for $39, which is less than
Wow.
half of what you would pay to go somewhere else. So there's
Yeah.
all kinds of things for people to experience and things to try. And I would encourage people to look at the website and see all the different things that they could participate in and become part of the community, because I mean, that's where accountability is, when you're with a group of people that want to see you succeed.
Absolutely. It's all about community. And, if you were like me a couple years ago and you couldn't travel or get out, there's probably online
Mhm.
options too to watch, or just, follow some of the people going or speaking. I think the community is what's important. And, I've been finally starting to be able to go to things, especially, post things being closed down
Right.
also. And it's nice just to be with people that support you and you can collaborate with. So
Yeah.
it's super
There's a whole,
excited. I'm looking forward to it, Robin.
yeah, me too. There's just a whole different energy when you're surrounded by so many people that have a common interest. There's just everything takes on a different a different level of enthusiasm and motivation, and it just, you want to be better when you're around people that want you to be better.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Mhm.
And I hope you have a wonderful couple months leading up to your big event. Get that
Thank
sleep
you.
in. Thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.